Hi, I'm Jenny, and today I'm going to do a little introduction into tarot cards. I recently polled my Instagram audience and asked what they'd like to learn next after our crystal workshop, and everyone's answers were so different, which was kind of cool. But the one for the most votes was tarot cards. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to do the other stuff, and it doesn't mean we won't go back to crystals, but there seems to be a rising interest in tarot, and I've had a few people ask me about them recently, and so I want to share with you. So before I start talking about the cards in general, just want to share my background. I've had the same deck. It's a universal weight deck. I've had it for 20 years, and I would have had it sooner, but there was a superstition belief that a young adult or a young person shouldn't have one until they're officially an adult. So I didn't get my deck till I was 18. I used playing cards because the standard playing cards are actually based off of tarot cards, and you can modify them to use them for divination. They're not as cool, but you know, if you're on a budget or you just want to see what's what, and it's fun. And I used rune stones because I made those myself also. But tarot by far has been probably the most meaningful to work with for me. I do love my new Oracle deck from Kyle Gray. I haven't worked with it long enough, but I can already tell it's going to be something I have for 20 years at least. And I just started my journey into the Akashic Records. So that is also something that is new to me, but I feel will also be very meaningful. So back to tarot. I want to tell you my first experience with the tarot. It was when I was about 16 or 17, when I lived in New Jersey. My mom took me to this older Italian woman's house to get a reading, and I just went with my mom because I thought like my mom wouldn't pay for my reading, but she ended up paying for a reading for me. I was so excited. Lady did it at our kitchen table, and she predicted my entire love life, and to a T. First relationship, which didn't go well. We don't need to talk about it. And then second major relationship, which also didn't go well, so we don't need to talk about that either. But the third one and the last one she talked about was my husband. She talked about a fair-haired gentleman who was an intellectual, who wore glasses, who had an interest in history. He's a social science major, by the way. And yeah, he does wear glasses. So it was very exciting to me. I still get excited. I love to do readings for people. You know, I've been doing it for 20 years. Some of the more interesting readings. I had a friend who didn't really believe in the tarot, but she knew I was different. And so she came to me for some advice, and she was going through a series of what seemed like kind of ridiculous bad luck. Like I don't want to give away too many details in case anybody knows her, but she was going through just a string of things that just seemed like someone was out to get her. And she had a baby at the time. And through the reading, I was able to see that a curse had been placed on her baby by someone related to her husband. And long story short, I was right. And it was pretty crazy what happened. And yeah, so I was really glad that she always thanks me still. Almost every birthday she would thank me for him, because she feels like without that integral part of information, she wouldn't have gone to a Cuandetta, and she wouldn't have got the healing she needed and get everything fixed for him. So that was really cool. And then another one was not as cool, but of someone I did a past life reading, and it showed that they had an issue with alcohol in a past life and actually died from alcohol. And then a couple weeks later, that person had alcohol poisoning and was hospitalized. So you gotta learn from your past life, you know. And then another one that was kind of interesting too was I had miscarried, and I just felt like we were supposed to have another child, and it showed me that we would have a son. And as you know, I have a little Zachy, so yeah, it actually gave me the sun card, and he is the sunshine of this family. He's so bright and energetic and vibrant, so totally makes sense. So those are some interesting ones for me. And why I chose a universal weight deck and why I actually recommend it too is because it's based off of what could be found of ancient cards. So like the deck itself borrows from the Bible, the Kabbalah, and ancient Egyptian images. So, you know, it's just holding the Torah there, and she's got like the moon for her hat. And it just really has really deep symbolism and very rich colors, whereas the just regular rider-waite deck isn't as pretty, I feel. So if you don't have a deck and you're looking like, oh, what should I buy? I would recommend a version of a traditional deck to learn from, because the symbolism is old and it's rich, and it really, I think, leans towards universal consciousness. So how tarot cards, in my opinion, work is it's these pictures invoke something in you, in the universal consciousness, using archetypes. So it's very Jung, if you're familiar with Jung's work, you know, the idea of the archetype, you know, and the archetype being universal, all going into the collective consciousness. It invokes feelings and ideas, and it's easier for your unconscious to connect. It also works with your higher self. So that self that connects to God, the Akashic records, you know, any kind of divination, your angels, whatever you believe in when you meditate, that kind of higher achievement, the higher consciousness, that's what can happen with the tarot. The tarot will pull you out of the mundane, the everyday, and through the images, remind you of what you already know. So it's not like they hold magic, you hold the answers. But because we get lost in our forms and our bodies and the physical day-to-day and the ego, all of that gets mixed up, and sometimes we can't access what we need to access in our lives. And the tarot is a tool to do that. And some people can do that without the tarot cards. And this is a really great introduction to someone, for anybody who's like interested in this idea of connecting with their higher self. And, you know, how can you do that? And you can do a lot of things with tarot cards. So it's not just, you know, tricks like, let me tell your fortune. And, you know, no future is solid. So it's not even like that. It's more getting to know that higher self. And things I've used my deck over the years for is I use them to work through my shadow. Very Jungian again. But the idea of that self that we deny, the self that we, you know, are embarrassed of or ashamed of, I used a book, and I worked through my shadow using the tarot cards. And then the other book I used was The Royal Road, which connects the tarot to the Kabbalah, because there's a lot of Kabbalah symbolism in the decks. So it uses the deck's connection to the Kabbalah, and you do meditations on all the major arcana through there. So that, and another book I loved, just really basic, how to read the tarot, and her descriptions and her guidance is really great. And if you're not ready yet to rely on your own intuition, then this is the best for you, okay? And also you can watch my videos, so we're gonna do fun stuff. Basic things is the tarot cards, you wanna treat them as something special, because they're your access to your higher self, to divinity, to, you know, whatever it is you believe in. And so you wanna keep them in something nice. So I actually keep mine in a wooden box that I got a long time ago, about 20 years ago. You want to keep them in something natural, so wood, stone, cloth. You can keep it in a nice cloth bag. I have a scarf that I painted with different symbols on it. I use that to wrap them up, and I use that to lay them out on, so that they're not just like in my pocket or on my bed or whatever. I always keep quartz crystal in my case, and sometimes different herbs, just to keep it clean. If you read decks for other people, you can use selenite or sage or something like it to, you know, cleanse the energy off the deck and off of yourself, cut the tie between you. But we'll talk about that more later. So just kind of going over the basic layout. So you have your deck, you have something to keep it in, maybe you have like a nice scarf or something to put it on, you have some tools, some things to help you cleanse the deck, maybe some books, if not, that's okay too. And you have those things. And the first thing I'll go over in this introduction is, you know, you have all that, you want to be able to bond to your deck. So you can do some kind of ritual or prayer or something after you open your cards up, you look through them, You cleanse them, sit somewhere quietly, place them somewhere on your heart, and dedicate your work with them. You can say something like, you know, dear guides, dear spirit guides of highest consciousness, dear God, whoever you're speaking to, you know, help me do your work with this deck. You know, you want to talk about, you're not just doing this for personal gains or whatever, you're doing this to connect to a higher good, to learn something, however you want to write it. Kyle Gray has a really great dedication prayer in his oracle decks. So if you're familiar with his work, you might want to use that and lend it to your tarot cards. After you do that, then sit quietly and look at each and every card and really get to know it. Other things you can do is like sleep with the deck. You can put it under your pillow. You want to touch them every day. For the first couple of years I've had this deck, and then I'll, you know, every once in a while go back to this because, you know, I've had the deck for 20 years, so it's been a long time. I'll do a reading every day. So I'll just shuffle them up, and then I'll draw a card and look at it. And that's another really great way to get to know your deck. There's no wrong way to shuffle, but you do want to shuffle to where you'll get some upside down. Unlike an oracle deck where you shuffle one way, it's because you don't have the reverse cards, and tarot cards you do. So shuffling, you want to really mix them up. And that's it. That's our intro for this time. And next time we'll talk about another part of learning your deck.